Herschel looked to the teen, hoping he had misheard the girl.
What? He choked out. No. Herschel cut her off. No. The man started shaking his head.
That's not true.
Clementine looked back to the wound on Beth's leg, then to the preteen's father. But just look and see for.
Stop it.
Herschel suddenly snapped at the teen, causing her to flinch. She's fine. She just needs to rest. Herschel. Clementine tried.
I'm taking care of her, Herschel stated, wrapping his arms around the little girl. She'll be fine.
Clementine let out a small sigh, but nodded.
She stood from her crouched position and turned to walk away. She made her way over to where Kenny and Sean were. Sean took notice of the girl and offered her a smile.
Hey Clem.
Hi, Clementine mumbled.
What's the matter? Sean asked. You seem upset.
Beth. Clementine glanced over her shoulder to the young girl who was resting her head in her father's lap.
Beth is bit, Clementine mumbled.
Sean's eyes grew wide.
What?
She got bit by the monster from the bathroom, Clementine said. Sean stared at the girl in disbelief. No way. How the fuck? I'm so. Sean didn't stay long enough for her to finish. He quickly made his way over to where his sister and father were. Clementine watched as Sean and Herschel spoke before Sean lifted his sister's pants leg and he seemed to freeze. Clementine was literally feeling sick to her stomach at that point. She jumped as she felt a hand land on her shoulder, then looked up to Kenny. Hey, Kenny started. Maybe you should sit down for a while. I'm okay, Clementine replied, shaking her head. I'd rather help out. All right. Kenny nodded. Why did you look around for anything that might be useful? Okay. Clementine had to force herself to look away from Sean and his family. She was feeling terrible. They all knew exactly what a bite meant. The world was so cruel. Herschel didn't move as Sean approached him. He just continued to hold Beth, gently stroking the child's hair. Neither male spoke as Sean looked over Beth for a moment. He blinked hard and swallowed before looking to his father. How is she? Herschel shook his head quickly. She's fine. Sean looked over his little sister, before his eyes fell to her bloodied pants leg. He felt his heart clench. Herschel eventually lifted his head to look at the boy. What is it, Sean? Clementine told me. Sean trailed off. He moved to Beth, lifting her pants leg. He froze as the bite came into view. Sean couldn't take his eyes away from the child. Oh God. Sean found himself say. He finally managed to look away, and he licked his suddenly dry lips. Dad. She's fine, Sean, Herschel said. We'll just get it bandaged and cleaned and she'll be okay. But we're not going to have this conversation. Herschel grumbled. You know we have to, Sean said. We both know what this means. Herschel felt his heart leap. He tried to keep himself composed. He narrowed his eyes at the boy. Sean, your sister will be fine. She just needs to rest. Stop this, Dad, Sean snapped. Look at her. He motioned towards the girl who was already looking pale and barely conscious. I see her, Herschel snapped. Sean trailed off. God, Dad, what are we going to do? He felt so hopeless. Herschel just shook his head. Sean swallowed, but stayed silent. He knew they were going to have to figure something out. They both knew what a bite meant. Clem walked through the room, searching shelves for anything of use. As she walked through the store, she spotted a single energy bar on the floor. She reached down and picked it up, pocketing the thing. She decided she could give it to one of the kids. Clementine continued to walk around the store. There wasn't much that would be of use, however by the end of her search she had managed to find 3 more energy bars. She looked around, deciding that some of the people could definitely use them more than her. She glanced over at Beth, who appeared to be asleep. Clementine sighed and looked away. She made her way over to Kenny, Katja, and Duck. Try to get some rest, hun, Kenny said. How can I with those things out there? Katja replied. Hey. Clementine called gently. Hey, Clementine. Find anything? Kenny asked. Yeah. I found a couple energy bars. I figured Duck might want one. Clementine offered, pulling one from her pocket. Thanks. Katja smiled. He appreciates it, sweetie. How is he? Clementine asked, looking at the young boy.
He's okay, it was just a shock. Katja explained. How are you,
Clementine?
I'm fine. The girl shrugged. I guess we're all fine, considering. Kenny responded.
Yeah, Clementine agreed.
I hope
Beth's okay. Maybe you should go check on her, Kenny suggested. Maybe.
I don't want to intrude, Clementine replied.
Yeah,
I feel ya,
Kenny sighed.
So where are your folks at?
Kenny?
Katja called gently. What?
Kenny huffed. I'm just wonder what she's doing on her own. It's fine, Clementine said. My parents went on a business trip. They're in Savannah. Hopefully, they'll be back soon, Katja said.
I don't think they will be, Clementine muttered. Why not?
Kenny asked. I heard my mom on the phone. It didn't sound too good.
I don't think they made it, Clementine explained. Oh, sweetie.
Katja cooed.
I'm sorry to hear that, Kenny said. Thanks, Clementine said softly. She didn't want to think about her parents right now. What's our plan?
Hang tight, I suppose. Seems pretty dangerous out there, so we ought to wait for things to clear up,
Kenny replied. All right. Clementine nodded in agreement. Well, I'm going to get back to looking around. Sounds good. Let me know if you find anything, Kenny said. Clementine gave a nod. Okay.
She's so warm, Sean mumbled, pulling his hand away from his sister's cheek.
She'll be fine, Herschel said.
Her body's just fighting the illness.
I guess so, Sean agreed.
I know.
The stress of everything probably isn't helping. She just needs to rest, Herschel said.
Okay, Dad.
Sean gave a nod. He hoped his father was right.
Maybe we should keep this between us,
just in case. I don't plan on telling anyone, Herschel replied.
All right, Sean said. We'll just work it out, as a family.
Herschel gave a nod, not looking towards his son.
Sean said nothing else, he just watched his sleeping sister in silence. Clementine had decided that she should check in with everyone. She couldn't sit still as all the tension and stress was making her nervous. The girl walked over to where Lily was taking care of Larry. You're going to be all right, Dad, Lily said. Just take it easy. Larry didn't respond, he just stayed on the ground, in too much pain to answer. Hey. Clementine gently spoke. Lily looked to the girl. Hey. I found these. Clementine dug into her pocket, pulling out one of the energy bars. It's not much, but here. Are you sure? Lily asked. Clementine nodded. Yeah. You're under quite a bit of stress. Thanks. That's nice of you. Of course. Clementine looked to Larry with a concerned look. How's your dad doing? I'm not sure I got your name, Lily said, ignoring Clementine's question. I'm Clementine. The teen spoke. Lily stood up to face the girl. Lily. My dad's Larry. What's wrong with him? Clementine asked concerned. He's got a heart condition. He takes nitroglycerin tablets pretty regularly. I've seen a few bad attacks that he couldn't get over and needed to go to the hospital. Lily explained. Yeah, I don't think that's an option right now. Clementine responded. I'm just trying to keep him relaxed, Lily sighed. Clementine nodded, and changed the subject. Are you from around here? I work at Warner Robins, Lily said. Clementine raised a brow. The Air Force Base, Lily explained. You're a pilot? The girl beamed. Lily smiled a very small smile. Nah, just mechanical admin stuff. I deal with a bunch of shitheads and bureaucrats all day. Sometimes a plane, if I'm lucky. Lily scanned around for a moment, then looked back to the girl before speaking. Your parents aren't in here? No, Clementine said. Where are they? Lily asked. They're in Savannah. I don't think they made it, Clementine said sadly. Lily responded with a sympathetic, oh. I heard an answering message. It wasn't good. Clem explained, gently. I'm sorry. Yeah. Clementine looked around before looking back to Lily. What do you think about all this? What is there to think? The dead are up, walking around, eating people and turning them into more of them. Lily's voice had grown urgent. I mean, Jesus. We need to stick together and get through this, Clementine said. Lily took a moment before she responded with a small nod. I'm gonna get back to him now. She gestured towards Larry. Okay, Clementine agreed. With that, Clementine walked away. She continued to stroll around. All the tension in the room was making her anxious. As she walked around, a voice suddenly called to her. You're doing a lot of pacing, kid. Maybe you should sit down. Rest a bit. Clementine turned to face Sean. That's easier said than done. She responded before walking over to the family. How's she doing? Herschel looked up for a second, glaring at the girl suspiciously. She's been asleep. Hopefully that helps some. Sean answered the teen's question. Yeah, Clementine agreed softly. Hey, Clem. Sean started. Clementine looked to the man. Yes? Sean spoke in a quiet voice that only they could hear. We just want to keep this between us. So we'd appreciate it if you didn't say anything. Okay. Clementine nodded. My lips are sealed. She didn't want another fight happening if they found out about Beth's bite. Thanks. He replied. The girl gave another tiny nod. She took a moment before reaching into her pocket and pulling out one of the energy bars. I found this. Thought Beth might want it when she wakes up. Herschel watched her for a moment before accepting the food. Thank you. Clementine offered a small smile before walking away to give the family some space. She made her way over to Carly, who was fiddling with a radio. Hi. She greeted. Hey. The woman greeted back. I'm Clementine, the teen said. Carly. The woman replied. What do you got there? Clementine asked. A radio. I can't get it to work though, Carly said. Mind if I have a try? Carly gave a shrug. Knock yourself out. Clementine took a while to examine the radio. She hoped the thing wasn't completely dead, as it could be a way to find out what was going on. A press of the power button did nothing. Clementine searched for any other buttons that could turn the thing on, but there was nothing. She flipped the thing around and opened the battery chamber. There's no batteries, Clementine announced. What now? Carly asked. There's no batteries in it, Clementine said. Oh, I knew that, Carly quickly said. Clementine smirked. You did? Yeah, of course. I mean, yeah, no, Carly sighed. Clementine let out a giggle. Don't worry, I was sure to bring extra batteries. Clementine slid her backpack from her back and took a moment to dig through it. She then pulled out 2 batteries. Here we go, she muttered. These should work for the radio. Thanks, I should be able to get it to work now, Carly said. Clementine gave a nod. She stood by watching as Carly put the batteries into the device. After the batteries were in place, Carly tried pushing the power button once again, but it wasn't turning on. Nothing happened. It's still not work? Clementine asked. Yeah, I can't figure it out, Carly sighed. Can I have a look again? Clementine wondered. Go ahead. Carly shrugged. Clementine took the radio into her hands and looked at it. She once again tried the power button, but it clearly wasn't the source of the problem. She turned the radio around again, wondering if maybe the batteries weren't any good. She opened the battery compartment and immediately spotted the problem. The batteries were in the wrong way. Clementine fought back a giggle as she took the batteries out and correctly placed them into the device. She then closed the battery chamber and tried the power button. Much to her surprise, the device turned on. You fixed it, Carly exclaimed. The woman reached over and turned the volume up a bit louder. The sound of the radio seemed to draw the attention of everyone else as they were now looking over, curious to hear what was being said. As the unknown virus continues to spread unchecked, the estimated death toll continues to skyrocket. WABE urges you to stay indoors and avoid any contact with individuals you suspect may have been exposed. At those words, Clementine glanced over to Beth, but quickly looked away as Herschel shot her a glare. The station is okay, Carly announced. In the event of my producer's telling me we have to get off the air now. Steve, Carly mumbled. Clementine glanced to the woman who had a look of despair on her face. WABE wishes you and your loved ones. The man's voice cut out briefly and nothing but scream could be heard over the static. God bless you all. God bless the United States of America. The signal cut out at that point and was completely lost. The group was silent as they all tried to process what they just heard.
What the hell was that?
Kenny called out.
News station.
Carly replied.
Dear God, what the hell is going on?
Sean uttered.
Nobody knew the answer to that.
The group fell back into a silence. Clementine heard a sniff come from her side and looked to Carly, who was wiping tears from her face. Are you okay?
Yeah. Carly quickly answered. I'm fine. You don't have to be. Clementine replied gently. It's a lot to take in.
Carly let out a sigh. My news editor was eaten about 5 feet away from me, and I would have joined her if it wasn't for that dorky guy on watch, over there. I'm sorry.
She was an asshole, but you know, Carly said.
Yeah. He saved you?
Clementine looked at Doug a bit surprised.
Yeah,
can you believe it?
Those creeps, or ghouls or whatever the hell they are, they were pulling our van apart and that guy, Doug, just came to the rescue,
Carly said.
Clementine gave a smile. That's good. At least you're safe.
Yeah. He's kind of cute, in that parents' basement sort of way,
Carly admit. Really?
Clementine looked to the woman.
Huh?
Oh,
nothing,
Carly quick said.
Sure. Clementine smiled. You from around here?
We drove up to cover the Cherry Blossom Festival. Real hard-hitting stuff.
That station, you knew the guy on the radio?
Clementine asked.
Yeah.
Carly nodded with a grim look on her face. I'm sure some people got out. Maybe they're all being rescued. Then again, maybe not. Clementine didn't want to think of the latter.
She thought if some of those people could get out, then maybe, just maybe, there would be hope for her own parents.
I'll leave you to your thoughts.
Okay, Carly replied.
Clementine walked away, having nothing else to talk about.
She made it around the counter and took a seat on a large box.
She let out a sigh when she suddenly felt her walkie-talkie give a buzz.
She quickly reached into her bag and grabbed it. Hello? Hey there, this is Glenn and I'm kinda in a jam here.
What's going on? Clementine asked.
I'm a bit stuck,
Glenn replied.
Kid, mind putting one of the grown-ups on the phone? Or on the talkie, or whatever?
Clementine rolled her eyes, but stood and handed the walkie-talkie to Kenny.
What's up?
Kenny spoke. So, I'm down at that motor inn, and well, I'm stuck, Glenn said.
What do you mean stuck?
Kenny urged. Well, I saw a chance to get some supplies for the group and a bunch of the roaming ones got the jump on me. I'm hiding over here, but they won't leave, Glenn explained.
Everything okay?
Sean questioned. Glenn's trapped down at the motor inn. Kenny huffed before pressing the talkie button again. We're gonna talk and send out some people to pick you up. Glenn let out a relieved sigh. Awesome. I'll sit tight till then. All right. Kenny looked over to Sean. Well, we have a problem.
Yeah.
Sean nodded. What are you thinking?
Kenny asked him.
Not much I can do with my leg. Sean replied. I don't think Doug's too good with zombies and you got to look out for your family. I can do it. Clementine offered.
No way. Kenny quickly spoke.
But, Kenny raised a hand to silence her. I'm not sending a little girl out there, it ain't happening. I'm going to have to agree with you. Lily chimed in. But he needs help. Clementine protested. I'll go. Carly spoke. You sure? Sean asked. Yeah. I could use a jog. Carly replied. It's dangerous to go alone, Sean said. I can take care of myself. And besides, I got this. She motioned towards her gun. It doesn't sound too bad there right now. I'm going to go before it gets any worse. All right. Sean nodded. If that's what you want to do, Kenny said. Someone has to. Carly replied. The woman stuck true to her word and left, almost immediately. Clementine crossed her arms, pouting a bit. Don't give me that look. This is for your own good, Kenny stated. Clementine only looked away. She wasn't about to just sit there and do nothing. Sean decided to talk to Doug, making sure everything okay. He used his crutches to get over to the other man. Hey. Hey. Doug nodded towards the other male. See anything? Sean asked. Nothing, luckily. Want to step outside, have a look around? Doug questioned. Oh, outside? You're kidding, right? Sean stammered. No, the gate out there is closed. We can hang out in the front of the store and be fine, Doug explained. Oh. Sean paused for a moment.
Sure, let's have a look around.
Cool, and we'll keep it down.
Don't need to bring 'em back this way with any unnecessary noise.
I couldn't agree more, Sean said.
The two made their way outside and Sean couldn't have been more thankful for that gate.
He knew if it came to it,
he wouldn't be able to escape from that many walkers, not with his leg fucked up.
God, he mumbled.
I think I'm going to be sick, Doug said, throwing a hand over his mouth. Then Sean trailed off.
Doug finished for him. Eat. As far as I can tell, that's all they care about.
And if one gets you? Sean couldn't bring himself to finish.
They eat you, and
whatever's left comes back as one of them,
Doug said.
This is sick, Sean mumbled. He felt sick to his stomach as he remembered that his little sister had been bit by one of those things. Yeah. I think it might be more than a couple days before all this gets sorted out.
Doug spoke.
Sean nodded,
I think so too.
Clementine glanced over to Kenny. He was engaged in a conversation with Katja, and making sure Doug was okay at the same time. She looked to Lily, who was busy tending to Larry, and finally to Herschel, who was still holding a sleeping Beth in his arms. Clementine watched the child with a frown before looking away. She hoped Carly was okay. She knew how dangerous it was out there. Clementine looked towards the door, then back to Kenny again. He was still preoccupied in his conversation, and Sean was outside with Doug. She could go now and they probably wouldn't even notice. Clementine slid her backpack off her shoulders, giving it a quick look through for anything she might need. Nothing came to mind, other than her father's gun, which she still had on her. With one last glance towards Kenny, she stood and started for the door. She managed to sneak out while Kenny's attention was still held by Katja. She sighed once she was outside. She took a look around for any monsters, finding none, before she started to walk away from the drugstore. Any idea where the pharmacy keys could be? Sean asked Doug as the two of them watched the walker-infested streets from the safety of the gate. Doug shook a negative. We searched high and low before you guys got here. We pulled a couple out of the office, but the key wasn't on either of them. Maybe they're out here? Sean suggested. Maybe. But I don't think we'll be getting out there anytime soon, Doug said. Yeah, Sean agreed. He didn't plan on going out there at all. You from around here? Sean asked. I moved here to live with my uncle. He does tech stuff and it just made sense, Doug said. Local? Not really. Doug responded. I've only been here a couple months and I've spent a lot of time. On the computer? Sean asked. No. Just doing my own thing. Doug replied. What about you? Got a farm a bit away. Things went bad over there and we had to leave it behind. Kenny mentioned Macon being the closest town, so here we are. Sean explained. He had hoped leaving the farm would be a safe option, but instead his own sister ended up getting bit. Sean decided to change the subject. I bet that place has some good weapons. Yeah, Doug agreed. We tried to get in, but it was too risky. Then a bunch of guys showed up and they tried. What happened? Sean asked. I think they're most of who you see wandering around there. Doug motioned to the streets. Damn. Sean breathed. He quickly looked away. There's no point in hanging out here. Let's get back inside. He wanted to check and make sure Beth was okay. Yeah, all right. Doug nodded. The two head back inside. Sean immediately made his way over to his family. How's Beth? She's still resting, must be exhausted, Herschel said. I'll try to find her some water. Clementine probably has some in her bag, Sean said. Okay. Herschel nodded. Sean looked around trying to spot the girl. He was confused. He couldn't see her anywhere in the room. He made his way over to Kenny, who was speaking with Katja. Kenny? Yeah? Kenny responded, looking at the boy. Where's Clementine? Over there? Kenny motioned over his shoulder before turning to look. His eyes grew wide as he realized the girl was gone. Oh shit. Clementine honestly hadn't a clue where Glenn and Carly had went, but she kept walking. It was too late to turn back now. Before long Clementine saw Carly come into view. It was dark, but she could make out the figure. Clementine stopped herself from calling out, and right before she could run up to her she noticed one of the monsters slowing beginning to make its way around the corner. Clementine quickly rushed over and grabbed the woman pushing her down behind a small brick wall. Carly nearly yelled in surprise, before she noticed the girl. "Clementine?" "Yeah. I'm here to help," Clementine said eagerly. "They let you come?" Carly asked. Clementine hesitated. "Sure." "You snuck out, didn't you?" Carly sighed. "That doesn't matter. We have to find." Clementine was cut off by a noise coming from the ice machine. The two stood and watched in surprise as they saw the door move. "Did you see that?" Carly asked. "Yeah, I did," Clementine whispered back. Carly aimed her gun waiting for whoever, or whatever was hiding in the icebox to come out. Suddenly it opened and Clementine and Carly sighed in relief as they saw it was only Glenn. "Guys. Oh man, I'm so glad you're here." Glenn climbed out of the icebox and made his way towards the two. "Jesus, Glenn," Carly huffed, shaking her head. "Well, that was easy," Clementine whispered as the three of them ducked down behind the wall. "Can we get out of here before any of these things notice us?" "Not yet. There's a survivor trapped up there." Glenn motioned towards one of the motel doors. Carly quickly shook her head. "No way, we gotta go. Now." Glenn shot her a disappointed look. "Listen, I was out looking for gas. And then, up there in the corner room, I heard crying coming from inside." Clementine looked over the wall to the room Glenn was talking about. There were two monsters banging against the door. There was definitely somebody in there. "Did you see anyone?" Clementine asked. "No, but it's a girl. We talked and she got frightened," Glenn explained. "I was trying to get in and help her and she started yelling and saying I was bitten. I tried to convince her I wasn't and that's when all of these guys came out of the forest. A couple almost got me and I ended up hiding in the ice machine." "Lucky you. Now let's go," Carly said. "We can't just leave her," Glenn said. "Glenn's right. We have to help," Clementine said. "You two are suicidal. Over a girl," Carly groaned. "I'm saving her, with or without you." "Come on, Carly. What if it was you?" Clementine sent her the best puppy dog eyes she could muster. "Please." Carly looked away before responding. "Fine. Let's go save Glenn's damsel in distress." Clementine quickly brightened. "We're going to have to kill all those things," Carly said. Clementine didn't like killing, even if it was necessary. "Kill, can't we just go around or?" "I don't see any way around," Carly replied. "Yeah," Clementine sighed. "You're right. They're not people, Clementine," Carly said, picking up on the teen's uncomfortableness. "They used to be," Clementine responded. "But they're not anymore," Carly told her. Clementine gave a nod. The teenager peeked over the wall taking in where all the monsters were standing. Clementine looked down to her father's gun. She swallowed as she looked to the zombies. She could kill them, they weren't people, not anymore. Clementine was jerked out of her thoughts by the sound of a gunshot. She jumped before turning to see Carly was no longer behind the wall. Clementine made her way from behind the wall, ready to cover Carly. The woman was shooting with ease. Clementine had to admire her skill. Carly's gun suddenly clicked. As she reached into her pocket pulling out an extra clip, one of the zombies grabbed her causing her to drop the ammo in surprise. "Clementine." The girl flinched as she noticed Carly struggling with one of the monsters. Clementine felt her heart pounding as she aimed her gun and pulled the trigger. The bullet hit the monster and it landed dead on the ground. Carly took a moment to catch her breath. "Thanks for not shooting me." Clementine didn't reply. Instead she looked around, spotting an axe. "There," she spoke pointing towards the object. "Sweet," Glenn commented. Carly took the time to reload her gun while Clementine made her way toward the axe. Careful not to cut herself on broken glass, she grabbed it. Right as she did, she noticed one of the zombies upstairs was now making its way towards her. Clementine looked down at the axe then back at the approaching zombie. She started to make her way towards it. Once she was close enough she took a deep breath and swung the axe, braining the zombie. She started to make her way up the stairs. Carly and Glenn made sure to stay close behind her. Clementine approached the final zombie and brought the axe down on its head instantly killing it. She stopped for a moment,
looking at the fallen bodies in shock.
She felt Carly nudge her forward and they continued on until they reached the door. Clementine knocked on the boarded door. "Hello?
We're here to help.
Please, just go away,"
the woman inside cried.
"Let's go,
Guy," Carly said. "Not yet." Clementine refused.
"We have a group. If you open the door we can take you back with us and—"
"No. No. No." The woman started to scream in a horrified tone. "She's in trouble." Glenn panicked. "We're coming in," Clementine informed the woman.
Clementine quickly used the axe to cut the board holding the door shut.
She looked at Glenn, who gave the door a kick. It didn't do much, so he tried again. "Stop. Just stop. I'm going out." The door slowly opened to reveal a sickly woman, who looked as if she'd been crying. "You're hurt," Clementine said. "Oh God,"
Carly muttered.
I said stay away." The woman started. "We need to get you help," Glenn said. "Our group can help."
"We've got doctors," Clementine said.
"It's too late for me," the woman claimed.
"Guys,
she's been bitten."
Both Clementine and Glenn looked surprised.
What?" Glenn looked to the woman.
"I told you."
"I said go away, I'm bit," the woman said.
"But you wouldn't just leave." "Maybe you'll be okay," Clementine said.
"I won't be fine." The woman shook her head. "My boyfriend was bitten. You get sick and you die and you come back and you kill anything you can find."
Glenn looked a bit disappointed and voiced, "You have a boyfriend?" Carly shot him a look. "Glenn,
"I don't want that. It's not Christian," the woman said.
"Please, just leave me."
"Please go. Just come with us," Clementine begged. "We can help you." The woman took a step back, looking to Carly's weapon. "You have a gun." "So?" Carly raised a brow. "Can I borrow it?" the woman asked. Carly shot her a look. "What do you mean borrow?" "Give it to me. I can just, end this and then there's no problem."
"Whoa, whoa, whoa."
Carly started to back away. "Please. I don't want to be one of them."
There,
Satanic." The woman started to beg. Clementine's eyes widened. But you can't just end it like this." "I have to. I won't become one of those things," the woman responded to the teen. "We need to get going," Carly said. "Give it to me, please," the woman yelled.
"This is crazy,"
Glenn cried.
"Please,
step back," Carly said.
"It's just 2 seconds,
just one bullet, and I can be with my family, and it'll all be fine," the woman said. "Miss," Clementine called.
"Back up."
Carly took a step away. "Please." The woman suddenly lunged at her and the group of 4 started to wrestle over the gun. All the movement caused the platform they were standing on to break. They fell to the ground. They sat, shaken by the fall. As they were getting themselves up they noticed the woman had grabbed the gun and was holding it to her head. "Please, think this through. We just want to help you," Clementine said. "You can't," the woman responded. "Please don't do this," Clementine begged. The woman only shook her head before pulling the trigger. Clementine started to whimper. Carly looked to the teenager with concern. She sighed and wrapped her arms around the young girl while Glenn started to vomit. "Let's get out of here," Carly spoke. All of a sudden, they heard footsteps heading towards them. They looked in horror as many zombies came into view, all coming from the forest. "Run," Glenn shouted. The trio started to run, moving as fast as they could to the car. The zombies chased after them, quickly gaining on them. "Damn it!" Carly swore. Aiming her gun she started to shoot. Clementine quickly did so as well, and although her aim wasn't as precise as Carly's she managed to down a few of them. They continued shooting left and right until they made it to the car. They quickly threw the doors open and jumped in. Heart racing, Glenn put the keys into the ignition and was quick to start the car, speeding off back to the drugstore. Sean and Kenny had made their way into the back room, trying to work on the door. They spent a while trying to figure out a way to pick the lock. "I'm sure this place is alarmed," Kenny said. "Yeah, probably," Sean agreed. "Maybe we should wait for the others. We don't know how long they'll be, and I don't think Larry out there will last much longer," Kenny replied. "You're right." Sean nodded. They fell silent,
looking around the room for anything that could help get the door open. "Hey, kid," Kenny started, "I'm sorry about your sister."
"Let's not talk about that," Sean sighed. "She's fine."
"I hope so," Kenny said. They weren't making much progress and eventually Kenny said he needed to check on his family. Sean told him to go ahead and stayed behind to work on the door.
Sean heard the door shut as Kenny left. He let out a harsh breath. He wished Beth never had gotten bitten. He should have been paying more attention. He slammed his hand down on the nearby desk, tears slipping from his eyes. He was scared, but he was trying to stay strong for his family. They needed him to be strong. He quickly wiped away tears, sucking in a deep breath, before turning to work on the door once more. No one spoke through the ride. Carly silently picked up some ammo, loading it into her gun. She let out a sigh as they approached the drugstore. Opening the door, they climbed out the car and made their way inside, quietly as they could manage. Immediately Kenny came over, a worried look on his face. "Clementine," he huffed, "I told you not to go. You could have gotten hurt." Kenny was cut off as the girl handed him an axe. He looked a bit confused for a moment, noticing the trio's glum looks. "What happened?" Clementine didn't respond, walking past the man. Kenny had picked up on the girl's depressed state and turned to Carly. "Everyone all right?" "Yeah," Carly sighed. "We had some close calls, but Glenn is fine. And well, we're okay. I've got a few cans of gas for your pickup in the trunk of my car," Glenn notified the man. "Good to hear," Kenny replied. "And things back here?" Carly questioned. "Quiet," Kenny stated. "Our friend is still in and out over there. He won't survive any more stress. We can work on getting those pills now." "Any progress with finding keys?" Carly asked. "Not that I know of," Kenny said. "Sean's in the back working on that door. This axe might be of help." "I'll take it to him," Clementine offered from where she was sitting. "You sure?" Kenny asked, looking to the team with a worried expression. "Yeah." Clementine walked over, taking the axe once again. "All right, sounds good," Kenny said, handing the girl the axe. "Let me know if you guys need a hand." Clementine nodded, taking the axe back before heading to the back room. As much as she wanted to make sure everyone was doing okay, they didn't have much time. Larry needs his medicine and they didn't know how things would turn out with Beth, who wasn't looking too good. Sean turned as the door opened, his heart pounding as he expected the worst. He quickly calmed as he realized it was only Clementine. "Oh, you're back." "Yeah," Clementine sighed. "How'd it go?" Sean asked. Clementine didn't respond. Sean noticed the girl's silence. "You okay?" The teen let out a sigh. "I'm fine." She needed to stop being mopey. Things were bad enough here as it was. "I found this," she motioned toward the axe. Sean looked to it. "You know, that might help a great deal," Sean said. Clementine looked to the door before speaking. "We could use it to break into the window." "Sounds good," Sean said. "I'll go let the others know." "Yeah, all right." Clementine nodded. Sean left the room and went over to Lily. "Clementine's got an idea for getting into the room." "Really?" Lily brightened. "Yeah." Lily let out a sigh of relief. "Great, you guys are lifesavers." Sean sighed, looking to Beth. Not to the person he should have saved. He thought. "She's in the back room," Sean informed the woman. "Got it." Lily walked off to go find Clementine and Sean went back over to his family, deciding the two of them could handle getting the medicine. "Hey," Lily greeted the teen as she entered the office. "You got a plan?" "I found this axe. I was thinking we could break one of the windows to get into the pharmacy," Clementine explained. "Good idea. Let's get in there," Lily agreed. The two made their way to the door, axe in Clementine's hand. Clementine quickly used the axe handle to shatter the glass of the small window. Lily reached through the window, careful not to cut herself on broken glass. She unlocked the door. They took a step back as Lily pushed the door open. The minute they stepped inside the wail of an alarm was heard. "Oh no. Shit." Lily swore. "Come on. We gotta hurry." The two ran into the room and their hunt for the pills. As soon as they spotted the medicine they dashed from the room. "We got what we need?" Kenny asked quickly as they exited the office. "Yeah. Let's get out of here." Lily replied, rushing to her father's side with his medicine. Duck, come on baby, time to go. Katja pulled the little boy up, Duck looking around in fear and concern. I'm going to get the truck pulled up round back, Kenny told the group. Do it fast, I gotta get my dad out of here, Lily ordered. I don't plan on dilly-dallying, Kenny said quickly. Honey, take Duck into the office and barricade the living hell out of the door behind me. The motor inn, it's not too far from here, we should head over there, Clementine said. Okay. Kenny nodded. Glenn, when you hear me honking in the alley, start getting people out of here. You got it. Glenn nodded. Doug and Carly, you guys make sure our defenses stay up until then, Kenny demanded before turning to Clementine, and I better take that axe, in case I run into any of them on my way to the truck. I'll go with you. Herschel stood, moving Beth, who had been woken by the alarm, off of his lap. Daddy? The girl whimpered. It'll be all right, sweetie. Just stay with Sean, Herschel assured her. Beth gave a nod as Herschel walked away. Sean helped the girl into the office, making her his priority at the moment. All right, Kenny agreed, let's hurry and... Guys, that door's not locked anymore, Doug called. Shit, Kenny yelled, to Glenn, Carly, and Doug. You three get on it. I'll get back as fast as I can. Clementine started to speak. What about? Kenny and Herschel left before the girl could even finish her sentence. Clementine watched in fear as Doug, Carly, and Glenn pushed against the door while the walkers tried to break through. Glenn, we need your help. Please hurry. Katja's frantic voice called. Clementine ran over to take his spot, letting Glenn run off to help. Doug, if we don't make it through this, you should know. Carly was cut off as the walkers banged against the door, nearly causing it to open. I should know what? Doug asked. Huh? Carly questioned. You said I should know. Doug was cut off this time as a nearby shelf fell, allowing walkers to come through a window. Shit. Carly cursed, pulling out her gun. On it. You sure? Clementine asked. Carly's response was to start shooting at the walkers. Doug and Clementine continued to block the door the best they could. That window is screwed, Doug cried. Clementine looked over at the boarded window that walkers were pushing against, the boards starting to break. Go. Doug nodded and ran off. Clementine looked around, finding a over-tipped shelf. She started to push it in front of the door. Suddenly screams filled the air. Clementine looked to see both Carly and Doug had been caught in the grips of the walkers. She ran closer to help. Get off me. Get off. Help. Doug screamed. Shit. I'm out. I'm out, Carly yelled. Clementine. Help. Ammo. In my purse. Clementine quickly ran over to the woman's purse, tossing her the ammo. She then pulled out her father's gun and tried to shoot at the walkers attacking Doug. Her eyes widened as nothing happened, but a click. The gun was empty. Before she could do anything else, she heard Doug scream once more. Walkers had broken through the boarded window, dragging Doug out. No! Clementine shrieked. Oh my God! Carly looked sick. Let's go, Kenny yelled. They got Doug. Carly stammered as she ran. It doesn't matter, you've got to move, Larry snapped, motioning for the two to hurry up. Clementine was frozen in shock. She didn't notice a walker approaching her until it grabbed her ankle, nearly yanking her to the floor. She kicked at it, struggling to free herself from its hold. Everyone had left the room. She was alone, and the walker wasn't letting up. She was sure it was going to be the end for her, when suddenly she saw an axe come down onto the walker's head. Let's go, darling. Kenny wrapped an arm around the startled teen, leading her from the room. They made it back to the motor inn, and Clementine was happy that the herd was no longer in the area. There were a few bodies which the group had piled up to toss out or burn. It didn't matter to Clementine, neither option sounded good, but it was the only choice they had. Beth was awake, which Clementine figured was a good sign. Clementine sighed, walking around the motor inn. So much had happened in the past few days, she almost couldn't believe it wasn't all a nightmare. She approached Glenn. My walkie-talkie, you got it? She asked. Yeah, Glenn said, sounding almost depressed. What's WR? Glenn raised a hand and Clementine took note that he was listening to a radio broadcast. Clementine listened in as well. After a moment Glenn spoke. I think I need to go.
To Atlanta?
The teenager asked.
Yeah, I got friends there,
and I just can't stay here knowing that they could be trapped in that
city, Glenn said.
It doesn't sound too good over there, Clementine replied.
Things could have gone either way.
Glenn shrugged. I gotta take my chances. I understand,
Clementine said. If she knew there was a chance her parents were alive, she would definitely go looking for them.
You guys be safe, Glenn said. We'll try, Clementine responded. The man paused for a moment before handing the teen her walkie-talkie. Thanks. She accepted the device, placing it into her bag. Take care of yourself. With that Glenn got into the car and drove off.
Clementine waited for a moment, watching him drive off before walking over to Kenny.
Hey. She smiled a small smile. Hey, Clementine. Kenny looked to the teen. Close call back there.
Yeah.
Thanks for helping me, she said. No problem.
I wasn't going to just leave you there, Kenny replied, looking worriedly at the girl.
Thanks.
Kenny gave a nod. Maybe next time, just don't wander off without telling anyone.
Yeah.
Okay, Clementine sighed. Clementine walked away from the man and over to Carly, who was digging through a box.
How are you, Carly?
I'm okay.
You know, considering.
The woman responded. Yeah, I know. Clementine nodded her understanding.
What about you?
Carly asked. I'm fine, Clementine said gently.
Carly sighed.
I'm sorry.
Clementine looked confused.
For what?
I didn't realize you didn't have any ammo, Carly said. It's not your fault. I just wish I could have helped Doug too, Clementine replied. It's not your fault, Carly said.
If anything it's mine.
No it's not,
Clementine said.
Don't blame yourself. It just happened. It was too fast.
Yeah.
You're right. I just wish we both could have made it.
You know?
Carly sighed. Me too.
Once their conversation had ended, Clementine walked over to Herschel, Sean, and Beth.
Can I stay with you tonight, Daddy? Beth asked.
Of course, darling, Herschel said to his little girl. Hey guys. Clementine greeted. Hey, Clem. Sean offered the teen a small smile. How's everyone doing?
Clementine questioned the family. Pretty good, Sean replied.
What about you, Beth?
Clementine asked the young girl. How are you feeling? Not too good, Beth admitted. Well, it's been a long day, Herschel said. Let's get some rest, you'll feel good in the morning.
Okay, Daddy.
The girl agreed.
Herschel led the girl off after that, going into one of the motel room.
I guess we should all get some sleep, Sean said.
Yeah.
It's been a long day, Clementine agreed. They both turned at the sound of footsteps.
Hey.
They turned to see Lily. My dad would be dead, if it weren't for you guys, the woman said. Clementine looked away. That guy, Doug, is dead because of me. Don't talk like that, kid, Sean said.
It's true, Clementine stated.
It's not, Lily replied. Don't blame yourself.
Suddenly the sound of gunshots rang through the air.
I hope that's the sound of us winning this thing, Kenny spoke. Me too, Lily agreed. This motor inn's pretty damn defendable. We block off the entrances with some cars and keep someone on watch. We could stay here until the military rolls through, Kenny said. I actually agree with that plan, Lily muttered. Me too, Sean said. We got beds, we've got water, and most importantly, we've got light.
There are worse places to call home, Kenny stated. As if triggered, the light flickered off the minute Kenny finished that speech. Me and my big mouth, Kenny sighed. I guess this means we should head to bed, Sean suggested.
Yeah, seems like the best idea, Lily agreed.
The group did as Sean suggested and headed off to bed,
but knowing nobody would be getting much sleep that night.
Sean couldn't sleep. He laid on the bed and mused for a good hour or so over everything that had happened. He wondered how Beth was doing. He hoped the girl would be all right. The longer he laid there, the more worried he became. Each time he thought on checking on his father and sister, he would feel hesitation and shame. He couldn't help but be angry at himself for not saving Beth. He tried to force himself to sleep, but his attempts at dozing off were endless.
At last, fearing for the worse, he decided that if he just knew that his family was okay, he could sleep, at least for a little while. He rose carefully, taking his crutches, and made his way to the room his father was in. He gave a knock at the door. "Come in," Herschel voiced. Sean pushed the door open. "It's me, Dad." "I know, Sean," Herschel replied. "How's Beth?" Sean asked. "Her fever's spike," Herschel sighed. "We never should have left the farm." "What?" Sean was surprised. "Dad, we had to." "No, we didn't. We should have just stayed put and waited for this stuff to blow over," Herschel said. "We don't know when that will happen, Dad," Sean replied. "Soon, I assume," Herschel said. "I doubt it." The words left before Sean could stop them. "I don't think everything will just blow over like you think it will, Dad. It's going to take a lot more time, meaning a lot of people are going to die." Herschel shot his son a glare. "Get out." "Dad." Sean tried. "We're not talking about this." Herschel stopped him. "You're tired. Go to bed." "Yeah. All right." Sean left without another word. It was late. Herschel wasn't sure what had woken him up at such an hour, but something had. He had a strange feeling in his gut telling him to check on Beth. "Beth?" He called the girl's name gently, but there was no reaction. "Darling, you okay?" There was still nothing from the child. He sat up quickly, his heart suddenly pounding. Herschel reached out to touch the little girl. Her skin had turned cold, and with a grim realization, he noticed she was no longer breathing. "No, no, no, no." Herschel pulled the child close. He felt for a pulse and found there was none. "No," he yelled, rocking the girl back and forth, torn apart by agony over his loss of the child he was supposed to protect. He held the child in his arms, crying until his voice became hoarse. He continued rocked the girl, when suddenly he felt her move. "Beth?" he called. There was no response, but a moment later, the girl opened her eyes. "Oh, baby girl." He pulled her closer. "It's okay, doll." He was cut off as he felt teeth sink into his neck. He let out a scream as the child bit his neck. He couldn't even react fast enough to stop her before he fell to the bed, life leaving his eyes. Sean's eyes snapped open as he heard screams. He immediately recognized the voice as his father. He grabbed his crutches, quickly left his motel room to see what had happened. Once he made it outside, he discovered he wasn't the only one the noise had woken. He knocked on the door to the room that his father was in, only to get no response. He looked to Clementine, who flashed him a worried look. Sean gulped, pushing the door open. He froze in horror at what he saw. As soon as Sean opened the door, he regretted doing so. He wished he could unsee the sight before him, as it was the most horrific thing he'd ever seen. Blood covered the bed, his father's neck was torn open, and little Beth was no longer the same little girl Sean had remembered. Larry let out a surprised yell. Carly raised her gun, pointing it at the undead child. Sean noticed this and wrapped his trembling hands around the gun, causing the woman to lower it. He takes the weapon from her hand, still looking at his family. "Everyone, please leave," he said, voice shaking as he spoke. "What in the fuck?" Larry started to speak, but Lily quickly urged him out of the room. Sean bit his lip as he listened to everyone exit the room. He wanted to cry. He wanted to curse and yell, but he couldn't. He knew what he had to do. "Sean." Sean sucked in a deep breath, not turning to face the girl. "What is it, Clementine? Do you want me to?" The girl trailed off. She didn't want to have to shoot anyone, but she didn't want Sean to have to do that to his own family members. "No." Sean shook his head. "I'll do it." He had to be the one to do it. Are you sure?" Clementine asked. "I'm sure," Sean responded. "Go on back to bed." "No," the teen said firmly. "What?" Sean looked surprised. "I'm not letting you do this alone," Clementine said. "I'm here for you." Sean sighed, but allowed the girl to stay. Their voices had grabbed the attention of little Beth, who looked to them with a growl. Sean felt his stomach churn as he saw the blood dripping from the child's mouth. Sean felt his heart pound with every slow step his little sister took towards him. He watched frozen for a moment. Clementine watched Sean worriedly. Beth was shuffling closer, taking clumsy steps, while growling menacingly. "Sean?"
Clementine called. Sean raised a hand to silence the teen. They both watched in silence as Beth approached her brother. Sean looked to the child as she was now standing directly in front of him. "I'm so sorry, Beth." He raised the gun with a shaking hand. He looked over to Clementine, who nodded. Sean swallowed, blocking out his consciousness. He took aim at the girl and fired, dropping her with a single shot to the forehead. His arm dropped, heart heavy. Clementine took a step forward, placing a hand on his shoulder. Sean looked to the bed where his father lay unmoving, lifeless. "It's not over yet," he mumbled. As if cued, Herschel opened his eyes. Sean turned his gaze away as he shot a bullet into his father's head, once again leaving him unmoving. He handed the gun to Clementine, who took it. Sean walked towards Beth, kneeling beside the child. He lifted her into his arms and laid her on the bed. "I'm sorry, Sean," Clementine spoke. Sean stayed silent for a moment before letting out a breath. "I have to bury them," he said, voice cracking as he spoke. "I'll help you," Clementine offered gently. "Thanks," Sean mumbled. Dad said we shouldn't have left." "Huh?" Clementine looked confused for a moment. "The farm," Sean said. "Dad says we shouldn't have left the farm. He thought if we stay Beth would have been okay." Sean felt tears pricking his eyes as he spoke. "It's not your fault, Sean," Clementine said. "You know we had to leave." "Yeah," Sean said. "It's just, I wish I would have agreed with him." Clementine was silent as she remembered her last family meal. How she had an argument with her parents over a stupid party. Suddenly, she looked to Sean as she heard him starting to sob. The girl could feel his pain. She wrapped her arms around him, allowing him to cry in her arms. The two sat in the room, Clementine comforting Sean until he had no tears left to cry. Finally, Sean had calmed a bit and he stood. "Let's go find a spot for them," he said. Clementine gave a nod and stood as well. The duo walked from the room, surprised to find the group was still standing outside the door. Larry immediately grabbed Sean by the collar. "Why didn't you tell us that girl was bitten?" he yelled angrily. Sean grabbed his hand, trying to yanking it from his shirt. "That girl is my sister," he snapped. Larry didn't let up. "Who gives a damn if she's your sister?" he growled. "She was bitten, we should have thrown her out." Sean shot the man a glares. "So had it been your daughter who was bitten you'd have thrown her out as well?" he spat. Larry glared back. "You better watch your goddamn mouth before I..." Sean interrupted him with a yell. "So it's fine for you to have your daughter stay if she was bitten, but to hell with everyone else. Is that it, is it?" Lily approached the two, having heard enough. "Dad, come on," she called. "Stay out of this, Lily," Larry said. "No, Dad. His family just died. Give him a goddamn break." Lily didn't want to be so harsh, but she knew he wouldn't understand otherwise. "They're dead. There's no reason to be arguing about this," she said. "If you two want to fight, be my guest, but make sure you do it far away from the inn. We don't need walkers coming through." The woman turned away. "I'm going to bed." Larry huffed, Sean still glaring at him. Finally, the old man looked away and Sean turned, walking away to find a place to bury his sister and father. After the two of you had dug the graves for Beth and Herschel, Sean went back to retrieve the bodies. Kenny offered to help him carry his father, but Sean told him he had to do it on his own. He apologized to his dad for being a jerk the past few days, telling him he loved him. After he had placed Herschel down, he went to get Beth. He cried as he held the unresponsive child in his arms, wishing he could somehow bring her back. Clementine heart ached when she watched the brother kiss his sister, telling her how much he loved her, before placing her down beside her father. They stood outside to offer a few words. Clementine held Sean's hand as he fought back tears. Then they buried them. They stayed there all night, Clementine offering her comfort whenever Sean needed it, lending her shoulder every time he cried. When morning finally came, Sean suggested going back to the inn, saying the group would be worried about them. Clementine agreed. The two headed back in silence and Sean immediately headed into his room. Clementine didn't bother him, she knew he needed time to grieve. 3 days passed and the group was getting quite setting into the area. They had managed to find some supplies in the motel, and had found some dishes in the breakfast room of the inn. Unfortunately, most of the motel food had gone rotten, but Clementine offered what food she had brought from her home. Sean had been refusing to leave his room. Clementine was a bit concerned. As she finished up helping Katja with breakfast, she announced to the woman that she was going to catch on Sean. Katja nodded, asking Lily to help her get plates from the breakfast room. Clementine walked towards Sean's door and gave a knock. "It's me. Come in." Sean voice. Clementine took note of how sad he sounded. She wondered if he was sleeping okay. She opened the door to the dark room. Sean was resting on the bed. The day after Herschel and Beth were laid to rest, Sean had been depressed. He refused to eat. After that, Clementine had made it a habit to bring him food, as she was the only one he would allow to enter the room. "We're having breakfast together," the teen told him. "Oh," Sean replied, sounding glum. "So, do you want to join us?" the girl asked him. "Maybe tomorrow," Sean replied. Clementine sighed. That was his reply every time. "I'll bring your food here." Sean let out a sigh of his own. "No, don't." Clementine looked confused. "You need to eat." Sean sighed again, forcing himself into a sitting position. "I'll eat. I'll come to breakfast." "Really?" Clementine asked, a bit surprised. "Yeah." Sean nodded. The teen smiled. "Okay. Good. I'll be out in a minute," he said. The girl nodded, before leaving him be. She was glad. This meant Sean was slowly breaking out of his depression. "Well, isn't this something?" Sean spoke as he looked to the group that had gathered around the inn to eat. "Hey, nice to see ya," Kenny said. "Decided to join us?" "Yeah, someone kept begging." Sean joked, looked towards Clementine. "I wasn't begging." Clementine pouted. Sean patting the girl on the head before taking a seat beside her. "Quite a feast we got here." "Yeah, you can thank the ladies for that," Kenny said. "Clementine and Katja did all the work," Carly piped in. "Oh?" Sean asked, looking to the teen, who avoided his gaze. "Yeah." Clementine smiled shyly. "I used to cook for my parents when they would work late. We got a little chef on our hands," Kenny commented. "Putting stuff in the microwave is not cooking," Duck teased. Clementine sent him a look. "I know that." "So what do you cook?" Kenny chuckled. "All kinds of things," Clementine replied. "Like what?" Lily asked. "Cereal," Duck spoke. Clementine rolled her eyes. Clearly the boy was trying to insult her. "First off, you don't even cook cereal." "Exactly," Duck said. Clementine felt her face go red as Kenny started laughing along with his son. "Shut up, Duck." Now, Katja spoke. "Settle down." Katja and Lily started to pass plates out after spooning gobs of food onto them. "Smells good," Sean commented as he received his plate. The group started to eat in a silence. Carly cleared her throat. "Well, this is interesting," she said, awkwardly. No one responded. She let out a sigh, trying to start a conversation. "So what did everyone do before this?" Carly asked. Everyone seemed a bit hesitant to speak, so Carly started. "I'm a news reporter. Or was. I came down with a team to cover the Cherry Blossom Festival," she explained. "It was actually turning out to be pretty cool, if I do say so myself." She suddenly trailed off, wearing a pained expression. Clementine knew why, as she remembered that radio broadcast. "I got to travel to a few interesting places actually," Carly sighed. "And the pay was okay, so I think it was worth it." "I was a fisherman." Kenny spoke next, understanding Carly was attempting to break the ice. "You know, spent a lot of time on a boat. I'd take whatever I caught back to sell." "Ever make any big catches?" Sean asked. "Depends what you think of as big," Kenny replied. "If you're thinking shark or something, then no. It was mostly mackerel, dolphin, the like." Sean gave a nod. "Yeah, it's probably be hard to catch a shark." "Not to say I wouldn't try." Kenny smirked. "Kenny?" Katja rolled her eyes, but Kenny just shrugged in response. Katja sighed and looking to the group. "I'm a veterinarian," Katja said. "I worked with my fair share of animals. Just a few weeks ago we had a group of firefighters bring in some baby kittens they'd rescued from an abandoned house." "Or?" Clementine cooed. "Yeah." Katja wanted to keep those little things. Kenny shook his head with a sigh. Not a cat person? Carly asked.
They're okay. Kenny shrugged. I'm more into dogs though. We used to have a dog, Duck said happily. His name was Elvis.
Yeah,
he got sick. Had to put him down, Kenny sighed. And Kenny may have shed a few tears, Katja said. Kenny's face turned red in embarrassment. He let out another sigh, shaking his head. He was my best friend. My mum didn't like dogs. I had a hamster when I was younger though, Clementine said, looking up from the food she was nibbling on. What happened to it? Katja asked. It somehow managed to get out of its cage while I was at school, the girl grumbled. I think my parents actually gave it away. She huffed. The group let out a laugh at the girl's expression. I was part of the Air Force. Lily informed the group once the laughter had died down. Yep. Larry spoke proudly. She's trained to kick some ass. Dad, Lily sighed, training is pretty intense, but I was thinking it's good to know, the basics at least. You know how to fly a plane? Kenny asked. That's so cool, Duck exclaimed. Would be cool, never actually flew one before. Lily replied. That would be awesome, Duck said. Worked with mainly tech stuff. Lily explained. The boy seemed confused and soon lost interest in the conversation and started eating his food. I grew up on a farm. It wasn't the most luxurious life, but it was all I knew. My dad, he tried his best to make sure we were safe, well taken care. He did a good job. He could be overprotective, but I guess the same goes for all parents. Sean started. He paused for a moment, feeling his heart clench as he remembered his family. I spent most of my time there. Tears pricked his eyes, but he quickly blinked them away. Clementine gave him a pat on the hand and he sent the girl a grateful smile. Explains your manners. Larry scoffed. Sean chose to ignore the man. What about you, Clem? He asked. Oh. Well, I'm a straight-A student. I mean I was most of the time, Clementine sighed. The group looked at her, waiting for her to continue. What do you mean most of the time? Kenny asked. Clementine gave another sigh. I got a B. That's not bad. Katja smiled at the teenager, who quickly shook her head in disagreement. A B-, Clementine exclaimed. Can you believe that? The group burst into laughter as the girl complained. What's so funny? Clementine demanded. You're freaking out over a B, Kenny laughed. It's not a B. Clementine huffed. It's a B-. It's not that serious, darling, Kenny said. It is, Clementine said. It's a very serious matter. The group once again started laughing. Clementine looked over to Sean to see he was laughing too. Clementine started to mope. No one understands me, she mumbled. Sean gave her a light shove. Lighten up, kid. A small smile graced her lips. Maybe things would be okay after all. So other than school, what did you do? Carly asked the teen. I used to take martial arts. Clementine explained. Really? Lily asked. It's good to know how to defend yourself. Yeah. I never really got too into it though, so I only know the simple stuff. Kenny chuckled, causing the girl to look over to him. What? Clementine asked. Kenny smirked. Hate to break to you, darling, but you don't look like you could hurt a fly. Clementine was about to speak, but Lily beat her to it. Bet she could kick all of your asses once she's been put through military training. Don't push the kid, don't want her getting hurt. Larry spoke up. Yeah, Lily agreed. I know, Dad. If it's gonna hurt her, I don't think she should be doing it, Kenny said. I've had a few minor breaks before, I can handle it, Clementine stated. I don't think so, Kenny said. He looked over the teen for a long moment trying to determine if she was being serious or not. The look in her eyes indicated that she was being serious. Look, kid. I don't think you realize it, but girls aren't as strong as they like to think. What's that supposed to mean? Carly demanded. Just what it sounds like. Kenny replied. You're being sexist, Clementine said. Sexist? He huffed. What makes you say that? You just said girls couldn't be strong, Clementine said. Well, they can be, but girls are supposed to be dainty. Kenny replied. So you've never seen a strong woman before? Lily asked. What about your wife? Katja sent Kenny a look, waiting for his response. Kenny stammered a bit. That's not the point. That's exactly the point.
Lily countered, becoming livid with how obtuse the man was being. You don't think females can be strong? They can be somewhat strong, Kenny said, scratching the back of his neck.
Clementine rolled her eyes at that comment.
So they can't be stronger than guys. She wasn't going to back down now that he started this battle.
They can,
but that's not normal, Kenny stated. The girls that are stronger than guys are the ones who look like He-Man.
Kenny could feel all the glares that were directed to him, and he let out a nervous cough. But women are the ones who have to go through pregnancy. Men would probably die if they had to do that,
Clementine said. Imagine pushing something the size of a watermelon out of. Sean's eyes widened and he quickly cut the girl off.
Clementine, I think we get it. Do you? Clementine asked.
Kenny opened his mouth to speak, but was stopped when Katja called his name. They looked to the woman who had her hands over Duck's ears.
That's enough. Katja scolded him, as if taking to a naughty child.
Take your food and go to the room. The order was firm, and feeling all the tension in the room, Kenny didn't protest. With a sigh, he stood up to obey, knowing he was going to be sleeping on the couch tonight. After they finished the meal, Kenny came outside and silently placed his plate down, trying to ignore the glares he was getting from the girls. He and Larry then went to go work on the wall, with Sean soon going to help, despite Larry's protest. Lily had stationed herself on top of an RV to take watch, while Katja sat with Duck, who was happily coloring, and Carly went to put the dishes away. Clementine found herself getting bored of sitting and doing nothing. She wanted to help. She decided to go over to ask Lily if there was anything she could do. Hey, Lily. She greeted the woman. Lily looked down at the girl. Hey Clem. Do you need any help with anything? Clementine asked. Sure. The woman responded, motioning for the teen to come up. The girl slowly and carefully made her way up the ladder and took a seat beside the woman. So, I wanted to go through the food supply, Lily explained, showing Clementine the several bags that they kept the food in. It looks like a lot, the teen commented. For one person maybe, but we're feeding a whole group. It goes pretty fast, Lily explained. Clementine nodded. You're right. The two started sorting through the bag in silence. After a few moments, Clementine spoke. I think this will all last about 4 days, maybe a week at the most. Lily complimented Clementine's math skills with a chuckle, as the teen came to the conclusion of how long the food would last. Once they had finished putting the food back in the bags, Lily asked Clementine to take them to the breakfast room for storage. Clementine did so without protest. When the teen returned, she found the group was huddled around each other, seemingly discussing something. Clementine walked over to hear what was being said. So we only have about 4 days' worth of food left, Lily informed the group. We need some people who will be willing to make a run into town to get some more. I'll go, Clementine offered immediately. I don't think so, Kenny quickly said. I can handle it, Clementine claimed. I'm with Kenny, Katja said. It's too dangerous. Seriously? Clementine asked in disbelief. I'm not a little kid, guys. We just don't want you getting hurt, Sean said, patting her on the head. The girl was surprised. She looked to Carly hoping she would have her back. After what happened last time, I don't think that's a good idea, Clem, Carly said. Clementine huffed and turned away. Well, that's settled, Lily said with a sigh before asking, so who's going? I'd go, but... Sean motioned towards his leg. Yeah, maybe next time. Lily nodded her understanding. I don't want my dad out there, Lily stated, crossing her arms. I guess that leaves me, Carly sighed. I'll go with you, Kenny told her. Don't want anyone getting stuck again. That'll work, Lily said. The drugstore seems like the best bet. Had quite a bit of supplies. Kenny nodded. We can take my truck down. Sounds good, Lily agreed. Clementine listened to them talk for a few moments, an idea coming to her. A mischievous smile fell upon the teen's lips as she walked away. The next morning Clementine was up bright and early. She was ready to carry her plan into action, she just had to be careful. She made sure to load her gun, turning the safety on before fastening it at her waist. Her stomach fluttered with butterflies as she made her way out of the room and started walking towards where she knew the truck was parked. She opened the door, surprised to find it wasn't locked, and climbed inside. She made sure to shut the door as quietly as possible. She hid beneath a blue blanket that was half falling off the seat. An unknown amount of time passed and Clementine was starting to think she had got in too early, when suddenly she hears the driver's door open, followed quickly by the passenger's door. She panicked, clinging to the blanket, and holding her breath. She was sure she was caught. She waited for a few moments, nervously waiting to be found. But instead the door slammed close. She was safe. She held back a sigh of relief, as she cautiously moved the blanket, just enough that she could peek out. Kenny was sitting in the driver's seat, adjusting the rear-view mirror. Clementine hoped that he didn't see her. He didn't, and the second he looked away, Clementine pulled the blanket up to cover her more, just in case. "Let's get this over with," she heard Kenny grumble out. He sounded tired. She figured he wasn't much of a morning person. Clementine pressed herself into a corner as she felt the truck began to move. Slowly it rolled into a right turn. Clementine remained still as possible, frozen with the thought of being discovered.